Hello there, my name is James Suhan. I'm a graduate support engineer here at E1 Solutions. And in this video, kind of going on the topic of the Dynamics GP Gateway, this one I'm going to be covering the networking side of things, more of the IIS, your firewall, kind of getting that connection from the server where the gateway's at out into PopDoc so we can finish that connection, be able to connect, get your data into PopDoc, be able to do with it as you see fit. So now I am here in my VM. So this is the same server where my GP gateway is set up and good to go. And as you can see, I have my gateway folder right here. If I just go to my local disk C, go to the PopDoc folder, you can see there's my Dynamics GP Data Gateway. Now in my other video pertaining to the SQL side of things, I touched on this app settings.json file. So this is the file that will be read when creating that connection to PopDoc by the IIS. This is where the credentials are validated and everything in there. So speaking on the IIS, let's open it up. So here you can see I am in the Internet Information Services Manager here on my machine. Now when connecting to PopDoc, this is usually kind of a bit of a daunting task, it always seems, where it's like, oh no, evil networking side of things, this is scary. It's really not too bad, because the main thing that goes into it is this particular server right here will need to have, or whatever firewall system is active, your IT networking team will need to whitelist our PopDoc IP address to be able to have it so it can reach this server and read that app settings file and all the DLLs that go with it. So that is a fairly straightforward thing. It's up to your IT networking team, however they best see fit, to be able to get that in there, make that connection. But that's a whole nother, that's its own entity. So here on the actual networking side on the server, very similar to the SQL, it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. So after you've gone through, ran the installer, you have your gateway folder, you got all your credentials punched in, you got your token or your basic auth user, all that good stuff. Now you'll come right here into the IIS. And to start off, you'll go to your application pools. As you can see, there's a bunch of them, but usually they don't really like having more than one application per app pool. So as per the instructions, we always recommend creating one. So right here, as you can see, I have one created, the Dynamics GP Gateway pool. So if I go to the advanced settings, as you can see, everything's pretty straightforward. It's exactly how you'd think it goes, to where you just add an application pool, throw the name in there, anything that pops up standard, like the .NET CLR version, managed pipeline, you just keep all this the same. You just name it something, whether it be like Dynamics GP Gateway, GP PopDoc, whatever you want, just so you know what it is. So then once you do that, you come over here to sites. You can see there's a bunch of different ones, but a common spot people put this is the default website. So now with the default website, you would simply go in, you add an application, alias, you name it, GP Gateway, Dynamics GP Gateway, PopDoc Gateway. Usually I always recommend keeping it similar to what you name the application pool, just for the sake of knowing what they are. Just makes it a little bit easier to find stuff, keeps in track, where you can take a look like, oh, what's this? Okay, it's for my GP Gateway or whatever the case. So you go in here, you give it a name. We'll just say Gateway and select your application pool. So we would select our GP one. And then the physical path, this is the one you've seen me do already. So it's very straightforward. It's your local disk C, which should be the standard where you install the gateway, unless you changed it on that first install. So it'll be local disk C, programming files x86. You'll see a PopDoc folder here, and then it's basically you just highlight Dynamics GP Data Gateway, hit OK, you're ready to go. So that's all you would need to do that to create that application. So now once you actually have this application here, as you can see, I have one pre-created. It's named the Dynamics GP Data Gateway, or Dynamics GP Gateway, matches what I have in my application pool, just so I can keep them together, kind of know what's going on with those. So with this, it's pretty straightforward. Really don't need to do much else with this actual application. Pretty much the next step would be go to the default website, you have your binding. So this is just a simple binding right here. As you can see, it has its HTTPS because we want that SSL security. IP address, I always recommend leaving it all unassigned. It really doesn't make a difference. If you want to assign it to something, that's completely on you, and that's kind of a more of a case-to-case basis than anything. But typically it should be all unassigned. Standard port should be 443, but on this one I already have something running through that port. So I just made a simple quick change to 8443. Pretty much anything like 8443, 9443, 10443, anything that's in that general range where there's not something assigned to it should be fair game. I usually just say 8443 just because it's still 443. It makes sense. It kind of keep it in that same vein, similar to how like you could name the app pool GP Gateway, PopDoc Gateway, kind of in that same vein. And then obviously we have our host name, which is a DNS entry based off of a standard browser URL or domain. So that's pretty much to distinguish it, because obviously on your main domain you don't have a page for GP Gateway. If you do, I'd be surprised, but typically you don't. 99, yeah, you really won't. So you create that DNS entry to where it still has that access to the internet, but it does not affect your actual own website. So like this one's a common one. Another common one I see a lot is like, if I were to spin up a new one real quick, just to, like, I see stuff like popdoc.domain.com. I see a lot of, that's a very common one, or PD Gateway, or GP Gateway, or anything along those lines, just as long as it's some type of DNS entry that we can use for this. And then obviously you have your SSL certificate, which SSL certificates, they're very straightforward when it comes to utilizing it for this security. More times than not, like if you have a wildcard that's already associated with your domain, awesome, you can go ahead and use that and you're good to go. If you don't, you can just get a standard SSL cert, create the DNS, create a standard SSL cert that's based off of that DNS you created, and you should be good to go. I mean, it's really pretty much not that bad. Price-wise, it's very affordable if you don't already have a wildcard. I would recommend just going for a standard SSL cert. If you have a wildcard, great, awesome, use that. If you don't, just use a standard. They're very affordable, pretty cheap, probably anywhere from $10 to $30 a year, something like that, give or take, depending on who you get it from. But the big key with the SSL certificate is it cannot be self-signed. A self-signed cert will not work for this connection. And also for the DNS, localhost will not work as well. Those are both outlined in the directions. But you got to have an actual DNS entry that can reach the internet, and you need a legitimate SSL certificate. Self-signed cert is a no-go. Localhost is a no-go. But once you have that created, there is one other thing that is a very, very, very commonly forgotten thing. It's part of our prerequisites, and that is the .NET Core hosting bundle. So if I fire up Microsoft Edge here, and I'll just go right to our documentation real quick. So since this is a very popular thing that we see a lot of, we do have it right here under the PopDoc section. Popular articles setting up the Dynamics GP Data Gateway. So if we open up this article, obviously it takes us here. This is the hot link one if you want to be able to find it in the actual knowledge base. So I'll open up the quick PopDoc knowledge base where we can find this. So it's under PopDoc documentation. and it'll be under the gateway section right here. So also, as you can see, here is our IP addresses article. This will contain the IP address that is associated with PopDoc per whatever region you happen to be in. If you're on our US servers, this is the one you'll use, Australia, etc. The easiest way to tell is it when you log into PopDoc. If you get to the point where it's like data.popdoc.com, that's going to be your US. Or else if you're on our Canadian servers, it'll be data-ca1. Europeans like data-wu, like it'll at least give you some type of hint that tells you what server you're on. But if we go back to our gateway connection here, our DynamicsGP data gateway, this right here is our this is needed. Without this .NET Core hosting bundle, it will not work. Currently, it does require this version, and I recommend you use the exact version that is hyperlinked inside of the documentation. It is guaranteed it works, and there won't be any issues. But currently, V6 is what we're working with. V8 will not work. So, and it's pretty straightforward. Here, you just click the link. It takes you right here, and it auto starts the install. And then you just go through. It's as simple as you open up the installer, agree to the terms, and send it through. Now the .NET Core hosting bundle, it just adds some extra functionality that can be used for the gateway. It's not going to affect anything else that's already there. It's not going to break anything. It's not going to fundamentally change anything. It's just some extra stuff that is needed to be ordered to run the gateway. Now, kind of going back to the IIS, so once that's installed, you will have to reboot the IIS. So a common thing, like in this scenario where I have a bunch of stuff going, obviously there's some stuff that we can't just close down. So my recommendation for that is you go here to the GP data gate, you go to your application pool, give it a stop, give it a couple seconds, let it fully stop, start it up again. That'll do that, and then obviously go to your website wherever you have the gateway installed, and we're just going to stop, give it a couple seconds, and start. That's as simple as that. That's an easy one to do. Now, if you do have extra stuff or you don't have anything at all, like if default website's the only thing you have in there and the gateway is the only thing running on that IIS, very straightforward. It's a simple command. So I'll pull up the search here and kind of show you. So we'll go pull up a command prompt, and you will want to run it as administrator for this command. So it's a simple command. We bring it right here. See Windows System 32, and it's just as simple as that's it. IIS reset. That's all you need to type. Hit enter, let it run. It'll stop your internet services. Once they're stopped, it'll start them back up again, and then your IIS will be refreshed. Now that is something you should keep in mind anytime you make any changes through the gateway installer. If you have to go in, like change the SQL user, anything that would be encrypted that you'd have to re-encrypt and run through the installer again, you will need to run the IIS. You'll need to basically reboot the IIS for those changes to take effect. As you can see, stop, internet services stopped, start, successfully restarted. Now they're good to go. So if you didn't have the .NET Core hosting bundle before, you run IIS reset, now you're good to go. So that is about the essentials of the networking side of things. As always, thank you so much for watching these videos. If you like watching stuff like this, continue coming back. We'll be putting out these videos for you as much as we can. Thank you, and as always, have a nice day.